Well, welcome everyone to our annual Truth in Taxation meeting today, Tuesday, December 3rd. We're here at the Cook County Commissioners Room in the courthouse, and it's 6 p.m. Our annual Truth in Taxation meeting is when all counties in actually Minnesota have this particular meeting. It's held annually, and it gives us an opportunity to hear about the budget and the levy for the upcoming year that will be reviewed by Auditor Treasurer Powers a bit later in our meeting, and the public will also have an opportunity to speak. The meeting has to, by statute, be held after November 24th and no later than December 30th, and has to be held at 6 p.m. or later. The meeting has been noticed on our website, shared through a number of media outlets, and the minutes and agendas of the county board meetings, and it's also in print on your proposed tax statement for 2025, which I remember a number of you have gotten in the mail. All of you actually should have at this point. Our preliminary levy was adopted back in September, as it is each year, and the proposed taxes for 2025 are received in the mail, and it's a parcel-specific notice that's sent to property owners depicting their proposed tax amount specific to each taxing district. One item not included on your notice is the school district referendum approved by voters after the date the proposed levy was certified. For your information, the tax statement that you've received in the mail does have the date of the school district's meeting. It's Thursday, December 12th at 6 p.m. in the conference room that's adjacent to the Arrowhead Center for the Arts. You can go online to find out your actual dollar amount for any parcel you own. For example, what I did to find out my school district dollar amount was I went on the WTIP website, typed in my parcel identification number, PID, and you can get that information, which tells you what you would pay for question 1, which passed on the ballot this past November. Your proposed property tax notice must be mailed between November 11th and 24th each year and is based on that preliminary levy established back in September. The preliminary levy that your county board members established was 9.81% and now has been brought down to 8.38%. And if you've been watching our county board meetings recently, you've listened to different ideas that we've suggested in a way to bring the levy down closer to 5%, which was our target. It should be noted there's a wide range of statewide levies this year. The Minnesota Department of Revenue has them on their website, and the average state preliminary levy was 6.4%. The primary reasons cited by the Minnesota Department of Revenue for statewide increases in county levies are rising costs and wages, inflationary pressure, hiring needs, and the fact that this is the last year of federal COVID-19 relief funding. The plan is for our final levy to be determined at our next county board meeting, which is on December 17th. To provide more detailed information this evening, we're going to turn this portion of the program over to our Auditor Treasurer, Brady Powers. He's prepared a PowerPoint for us, and there's more specific information that he'll share at this time.
Okay, first slide is just a preview of what's to come. Truth in Taxation, it's required by Minnesota statutes, this meeting, required to hold public meeting regarding the county's proposed budget and levy and allow the public time to speak. The law requires that the treasurer deliver a notice of proposed taxes to each taxpayer and that the notice contain the amount of taxes each taxing authority plans to collect in the following year. Some information. The taxing authorities in Cook County include the county, the school, the hospital, the city, 3 towns, Economic Development Authority, ARDC, and the state of Minnesota. Almost 40% of all property taxes collected in Cook County are for taxing entities other than the county. There are some advantages and disadvantages. Some of the disadvantages of property taxes as a source of local funding are the complexity of the tax system, the unfunded state and federal mandates, and the taxes may not match the ability to pay. There are advantages. The local government is more responsive and accountable to the public. You're here tonight. Property taxes are a more stable and reliable source of revenue for local government functions than other sources of revenue. There are also the Board of Review meetings in the spring of each year for the county to review with taxpayers the value and classification of their properties. The meetings to be held in the spring of 2025 will review values for taxes payable in 2026. So next slide is just a comparison of 2024, 2025. Total budget in 2024 was just over 40 million. This year, proposed is 45,613,000. So the change is about a 12.3% increase. The tax levy last year, the final levy, was 12,200,000. This year, the proposed is 13,396,910, an increase of 9.81%. The local tax rate for 2024 was 45.01 for county taxes. If there was no levy increase, that tax rate would drop to 39.91%. With this proposed levy, the tax rate is 43.81%, still lower than 2024, and that's because the taxable market value increased 12% for 2025 taxes, and that increase in valuation exceeds the levy increase and results in that lower rate. Some tips for reading the tax statement. The county line includes fire district taxes in unorganized territories. Unorganized is not the city, not the 3 towns. So outside of there, anybody would have a local fire district, Gunflint, Colville, Hoveland, et cetera, and they're different rates, slightly different. There's this line called State of Minnesota line on your statement. This tax is only paid by commercial and seasonal recreational properties. So for homestead, it would be 0. The Independent School District 166 line, as Ann said, does not include the impact of the referendum question number 1 that was approved on November 5th. And the estimated impact is $18 a month for a $400,000 home. That was on their website. The Special Tax District line includes the North Shore Hospital levy, which this year is $1,897,500. The Economic Development Authority levy, which is $519,880, and Arrowhead Regional Development levy, $38,195. There's also a line called Fiscal Disparities. This line is only paid by commercial and industrial properties. Anybody here is familiar or has a commercial property, just know that the impact to a property is less than what appears on this line because of the complex calculations required by state statute. The next slide is our proposed budget and levy for 2025. This goes down the line on the left side, the general fund, the highway fund, public health, human services, airport, our building fund, our bond payments, our housing cost, our CIP bonds, our capital reserves. The second column is our revenues. And then our use of fund balances. The highway department is putting $115,000 back into their fund balance. They've used it a significant amount in the last couple of years for building costs that they've funded through their own revenues. Public health, human services has a strong fund balance they've built over several years, and they've chosen to use a lot of that fund balance to keep their levy down. And this slide shows the final 9.81%, and this was what was approved on September 10th. Some of the things that drove the budget this year were the long-awaited decision of the United States Forest Service, the reappraisal of the boundary water lands that was received earlier this year. The Forest Service determined that the county would not have to pay back $2.16 million in federal funds that we'd been holding in reserve pending the final decision on the reappraisal. This has allowed us to add $315,000 of federal payments to our budgeted revenue for 2025, and it also allows some room for the county board to make final cuts to the levy this year. We continue to benefit from high interest rates on our money market and investment funds. This is through the high interest rates that have been experienced throughout the economy in the last few years. The earnings we've received in the last 2 years have improved our fund balance, and they provide flexibility in funding the county's capital improvement plan, there's organizational strategic plan, and keeping the levy in line with our long-term goals. Some other drivers: we received news in August that the health insurance costs for the county would increase 9.95% for 2025, and this follows last year's 7.3% increase. The issuance of $2.57 million in bonds early in 2024 to address our deferred maintenance of county buildings. The county created a 5-year deferred maintenance plan, which was completed in 2023. And these bonds provide funding for the 2023 and 2024 deferred maintenance costs as determined by that plan. Other drivers: the need to make improvements to the law enforcement center. The county board approved an architect contract for renovation and expansion of the law enforcement center this year. Total costs are estimated at almost $6 million, and the county plans to issue bonds for those costs later in 2025. Another factor: the costs of inflation. As you heard from Ann, they were a factor for us, as for others also, in negotiating a 3% cost of living increase for employees in 2025. This next slide is the county levy history from 1989 to 2024. Are you guys able to see the whole of this slide?
No.
No?
Oh,
I think 2007 and 2025.
Okay. It's close anyway. It's to give you a sense. You don't need to see every line, but it's to give you a sense. If you look on the left side, it starts in 1989, and it runs down to 2005, and then the next column, 2008 to 2024. If you look at the percentage change in the actual levy, you'll see changes, a decrease of 12%, increases of 17%, 25%, decreases of 8%, increases of 10%, 17%, 11%, 0. The next slide shows you what our average levy has been over that time period. It's been 4.38%. It's simply multiplying what the levy was in 1989 and multiplying each year by 4.38%. And you come, with that amount, you come to the levy very close to what we have today. And all it points out is that at times boards are trying to hold the levy for various reasons, and they may even produce cuts. But eventually it catches up, and this has happened through many boards with many different philosophies. Eventually it comes around again, the increases come. So it just points out that trying to stay to a steady levy, you may be able to avoid those jumps. Some law changes affecting taxes in 2025. These are two things that help homestead properties. The market value exclusion for 2025, the maximum exclusion is $38,000 for a homestead property with a market value of $95,000, and that exclusion then decreases 9% for every dollar of market value over $95,000. Eventually it disappears at a value of $517,200. Now this compares to last year where the maximum exclusion was $30,400, so they've increased that maximum exclusion by $8,000, and that started at a value of $76,000 and then steadily went down until it disappeared at $413,800. So it's not a huge value, but it's remarkable in that it's the first adjustment that the state has made to this in over 20 years. I think this came into effect in 2000, 2001 maybe, and this should have been adjusted several times, based on valuation changes. I think it was set up to maximize at a reasonable, small valued property at that time. 76,000 was a low but a small value. Now, 95,000 is not, I would say it's not a realistic value for the start of the maximum. What would you say our average? Our average now is like 3.
The average, I don't know what the average homestead would be, but I think our average sale price on residential structures is over 500,000 now.
Yeah. How many are at 95,000, would you say?
If they are, they don't probably
Yeah.
have running water.
Yeah. So, anyway, but we'll thank them for any help that they provided, the state. The second one's a little more help. The taconite homestead credit was increased to $515 for 2025 taxes. The credit was $289.80 in 2024, and back in time for as long as I can recall. So this is the first increase, but that's a significant increase. The next slide just gives you a sense of who's paying the property taxes in Cook County. And this is by class. So on the left side, you see homestead properties, then seasonal rec, non-homestead residential, maybe rental properties, for example, apartments, resorts, commercial, public utility. And then switch over to the right-hand side, and you see percent of the total taxes in Cook County paid by these classes. Homestead pays 21.35% in 2025. Seasonal rec pays 36%. Non-homestead residential pays 26%. And those are the three largest categories. Our commercial properties pay 8%. So we're helped tremendously by the seasonal recreation, and a lot of those property owners also show up in that non-homestead residential section, because a large part of their acreage besides the house is in a different class, but they're still large. So a large part of that 26% is also paid by those seasonal rec owners. The next slide, it just gives you a sense of the levies paid or being levied by all of our entities: the city, the towns, ARDC, the school district, our fire districts, the Economic Development Authority, the hospital district, the county, and all the total levies. And this is where the county, our levy is about 40% of all of it when you add in the state property tax at the bottom and the fiscal disparities. I include a column on the left, the 2001 levy, just to give you a sense of what's changed in the last 20-some years. In 2001, you see the school district had a levy of $3 million. The county had a levy of $3,398,000, and there was no state general property tax, and there were no fiscal disparities. So the school funding was changed drastically after 2001, and that gave rise to the state general tax, which is paid by the commercial and seasonal properties, and it's also pushed schools into having more of these referendums, because they're not allowed to have as large of a local levy, which is spread across everyone. So that is, but those referendums are not spread to those seasonal properties. Next steps, the county board has one more scheduled meeting on December 17th, at which it can approve a final budget and levy. If they are not able to finish a final budget and levy on the 17th, they would schedule a special meeting no later than, the actual date would be no later than December 27th to complete this requirement. Changes have been made to the 2025 proposed levy budget, as Ann said. Since the preliminary levy of 9.81 was set on September 10th, bringing it down to 8.38%. The board has discussed cutting some of the requested spending increases. The board has also discussed using some of the $2.16 million in BWCA reappraisal reserves to bring the levy closer to that long-term average increase. And the board must also approve any increase to its own salary and per diems in December in order to take effect in the next year. And the final slide gives you a sense of the timeline and why valuations don't line up with property taxes. You can see how long it takes from the sales studies that the assessor has to do. I think those numbers underneath the state sales study have to be changed, but 2022, 2023 sales studies go on. The valuation date is January 2nd. Then the local board of reviews happen in the spring, April and May. Those are on your valuation notices. The county has its Board of Equalization in June. And then the estimated notice has just went out for 2025 taxes, and then taxes due in May and in October, and so on. So in the spring of 2025, that's when those meetings go on for valuations for the 2026 taxes. And I'd like to read a letter that came in from a taxpayer. Just asked this to be read aloud and into the record. This came from Donald Davison at 583 South Shore Drive, Grand Marais. In regards to truth and taxation, dear commissioners, I will not be able to attend tonight's hearing. Please read my letter aloud and make it part of the hearing record. We have lived in Cook County for just shy of 49 years. In that time, the county population has increased approximately 14%, but the county budget has mushroomed, almost always increasing annually far, far above the rate of inflation. We currently have duplication of services and areas of responsibilities within the county. You don't even question that, let alone try to eliminate those duplications. You just keep funding them, and you seem to be unable to determine your role in sifting through funding requests to separate needs and requirements from wants and wish lists. The county workforce has mushroomed. For instance, the county attorney staff has tripled in just a few short years. Tripled. Where else in the county are there 3 full-time attorneys for a population as small as ours, even considering our tourist economy? Our courthouse addition is just a few decades old, but is now deemed too small to house an ever-increasing employee count. The county board has granted enormous pay increases that far exceeded anything anywhere else in the county. You have adopted housing and rental policies that have driven up housing prices to the point where there is no longer an affordable housing market. Our Cook County real estate taxes are our second highest monthly expense after only the federal income taxes. More than food, more than heat, more than insurance, more than electricity. You are making it almost impossible for people to be able to afford to live here. In our household budgets, we've had to do without. We are lucky enough to have paid off our mortgage, and our 18-year-old car still works, so we don't have car payments. When will you reflect your constituents and how we have to learn how to do without a lot of wants? When will we learn to say no, or even maybe not? Sincerely, Don Davison.
Thank you. So before we open up for public comment, Assessor Thompson is here, and typically he talks a little bit about the quintile review and concerns that people have about market value.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab the microphone just in case the video doesn't get my voice. Thank you. So, I think we only have maybe one visitor here today to speak to the value or to the issues here today, but I just usually touch on at this meeting, because we have our meeting for the valuation notices in the spring. You know, we have about a 3-month window where a taxpayer can review that value notice and appeal, or call and just get some information if they're looking. The area that we reviewed for the 2024 assessment is a quintile area, we call it, the Hovland area. So anything past Kelly's Hill all the way up to the Canadian border and, you know, north. So all of that was reviewed. We do that once every 5 years. At least that's the goal. You know, there are some properties that, you know, either were not visited, or, you know, maybe they've been visited more than once or twice in 5 years, but we did the Hovland area. And then also, you know, we've had a lot of value increases since, you know, probably 2020. We've seen about a 75% increase in the assessed values countywide. So it's not uncommon to see a bigger jump on a year where, you know, there was a review of that property, a physical site visit, because at that point the appraiser is coming through, you know, maybe there's been updates to a property. If it's been, you know, new roof siding, windows, or something like that, we would up that value. Or, you know, maybe we come across it and we just say, well, this was undervalued in the past and we need to get it up to, you know, where the market is at, so that, you know, it's closer to that market value. That's what we're shooting for, is what we believe the property would sell for if it was listed. So if there are any valuation concerns today, I have a sign-up sheet. I think you guys had already put your information on there. And, you know, you're more than welcome to come up and address the board, but if it's strictly related to your property valuation, someone from my office will be in touch. Unfortunately, we can't review the 2024 value at this point at my you know, office level, but we can always look forward to the 2025 valuation, which, you know, we set the value as of January 2nd each year. So we would be sending out a notice in April of 2025 with any changes from that 24 notice. So I also did want to just touch on the median home price for our most recent study period, which ended on October 1st. The median home price is actually lower than the prior sales period. It's $441,000 is the median on 111 sales. And in the prior study period, which goes, you know, from October of 22 to October of 23, that was 110 sales, so very close in the number of sales. The median price was $514,000. So just wanted to clarify those numbers, because I said I thought it was over $500,000, but it was in the prior study period. In the most recent study period, that median has actually come down a bit. But we are still seeing properties selling for more than their assessed value. So that's where we see the continued value increases on the assessments. And we're early in the sales study period. Like I say, we just closed out that study period October 1st. We're looking at the preliminary numbers. Some areas could see as little as, you know, 5% increase, and some areas are probably going to see 7 to 10%. I think we're going to have an average in that 7 to 8% range for the 25 assessment, depending on the property types. On-water properties are still in really high demand, and we're also seeing that, you know, some of those resort-style units, like, you know, Caribou Highlands, the Lutzen Sea Villas, things like that, Bluefin Bay, we're still seeing more increased demand. You know, it's outpacing the growth, or the rate of the value increase is more significant on those.
Well, thanks for that explanation, and for anybody that is speaking tonight or interested in signing up, make sure you put your property ID value. If you don't have that property ID number with you, just put your address and we can contact you. Well, at this time, I'll open it up for public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to appear before the county board, and what we'd like you to do is come forward and speak into the microphone for clarity. Sign the public comment sheet and state your name, address, and you can speak respectfully up to 5 minutes. And we just appreciate the opportunity to listen to your concerns and comments. So is there anyone from the public that would like to speak this evening? Please come forward.
You want me to sit here?
That's correct. Thank you. And there's a sheet there where you can sign in if you haven't already.
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
Richard Horn, live out at 1653 East Highway 61. What brought me to the meeting tonight was on the tax statement where it states the time to provide feedback as proposed levy is now, and I understand after your good presentation, Brady, that it was on the total levy. But the comment underneath said it's too late to appeal your value without going to tax court. And I'm aware that there's a Board of Equalization in the spring, but that's what brought us here. And thanks for the information you shared. The thing that I thought was missing is there's no reflection as to how much new property comes in to the budget under new construction. And so the numbers are skewed based that you spread it beyond what was existing in prior years.
I think Bob has some of that information, I believe. You thought it was
Yeah.
about 1% of the...
It's right around 1%, yep.
Yeah, and I, just looking at the construction and the amount of everything that God has made being pushed out of the way and us pouring concrete and asphalt there, I thought it would be a greater number than that. But thanks for that good report, and it was encouraging to learn that the BWCA, in lieu of taxes, were granted by the government. That's a great amount of money.
Yeah, we took a pretty good hit, about 14% from what we
Yes.
were originally receiving, but it was much better than their first appraisal. The reappraisal came back much better. And they had threatened, I guess advised, that once the reappraisal was done, they kept giving us the original amount, and they said, whatever the reappraisal, you're going to have to pay us the difference back. And then their decision changed at the end, and they said, you don't have to pay anything back, and here's the final. So we could just move forward, and all that money we've set aside is there for helping with projects, helping with the levy.
Yeah, I'd just make a comment about employment. Many of you know my past in the county and my involvement financially at the credit union. Totally aware that the government, being the largest employer in the county, and the county board represents being now one of the largest employers as well, so you have a great responsibility, and you're all aware of how you struggle with that. My other reason for being here tonight has to do with equalization, and we've owned a small property where you go into Nanabazoo Lodge and go along the shoreline, and it's a substandard lot that it was purchased by my wife's family in 1961. And boy, it's just inflated. And so I went on the county site where you can look at properties along the way. I can't figure out the land appraisal valuation, starting with Nanabazoo Lodge and right on up to each owner. And Ramey's have purchased a couple of properties back along there. But our property is a subpar lot, and it's substandard in its construction, and its evaluation has just exploded. And I'll take that up through regular channels. But I want you to be aware that I'm looking for fair and equitable, and I'm not seeing it on this property, and I want you to be aware of that. Wherever that folds out. I don't think I'm necessarily unique. That's my comments tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Are there other members of the public that wish to speak this evening? Any other members of the public? Going once, going twice. Well, thank you all for attending our Truth and Taxation meeting this evening. And this video will be available on our website for those people that were unable to attend. Thank you so much. Have a safe trip home.
I thought we had till 7. We don't have to stay till 7? Maybe that was the other one. There was some, yeah, his meeting.
Yeah.
There was some meeting, we had to sit
I think we
here.
always felt like we had,
My notes.
remember that time? I don't know if you were here. With the guy